Hello everyone, this is Nammerman, and today we'll be doing an overview of the games of the semifinals of MWT7. So, unlike the previous videos, I'm not going to review the stats, since the stats aren't going to really matter as much as the individual games. The stats were more important during the general tournament just to see metagame trends, but as we have less games, there's going to be a lot less stats changing, if that makes sense. Because we already have half the amount of games that we would have had last week. So, it definitely would not be super helpful to look at the stats since they are going to change drastically after 8 games as compared to like 16 as we had before. Okay, that's not the right amount. But, yeah, if you have half the amount of games and you try to impact the stats with that, it's not going to matter as much. So, yeah, I am just opting to go straight into the replays and just discussing that. So, with that being said, we have Z's versus Rio Vidal. We got Z's with a relatively standard fighting team, and we have Rio Vidal with a relatively standard dragon team with a Raging Bolt. We do have a Roaring Moon though, so it's a little bit different, but we should take a look and see how this match goes. So we lead with the Great Tusk into Dracopult, instant switch up by Z's, expecting the Stricken Meteor. Very well played. Iron Valiant instantly getting some pressure, and the instant Gudra KO with the close combat. That crit did not matter. Gui going to slow down the Iron Valiant though, so it's probably going to get forced out by the Dracopult this turn. You see the Iron Hands come out as a response. Easily taking the Shadow Ball. Is that Assault Vest or is that just normal Iron Hands bulk? I actually don't remember. Or I'm not super sure. It's been a while since I've used fighting. But the Ice Punch does cause the stamina to go up. As the Flash Cannon comes out into the Gallade. Flash Cannon likely trying to catch the Iron Valiant on the switch, but fortunately that's not happening. Gallade also trying to catch something on the switch, but fortunately Rio Vidal does stay in. The crit and the Sacred Sword knocking down the Duo Steel core. But now Gallade is also going down, which means Dracopult will be a bit more of a threat. As the Shadow Ball does go through, but Iron Valiant does force it out. Iron Valiant taking Raging Bolt to a dangerous HP, as we see the Great Tusk come in to check the Thunderclap and prevent the 50-50. Unfortunately, it looks like Rio Vidal is timid, so he does outspeed the Great Tusk. But the Great Tusk is able to take both hits, and is able to KO Raging Bolt as a result. Excuse me, sorry. See the Psychic come out from Latios. Latios looking to be really dangerous here, as we do see the Aqua Jet lower the Latios to enough HP. Is the Iron Valiant Scarf? That would be crazy if it was. It's possible Z's might be bluffing the Scarf here, but I think that might not be a bluff, because while it's just incredibly risky to do such a bluff there, but it is possible that he could be mixed Scarf, which is definitely really ballsy to do. Him doing that actually was a... I know I skipped over the rest of this game, but it's pretty much over at that point. But very interesting that he was Scarf mixed there, because usually mixed has Expert Build instead of a Choice Scarf. But Choice Scarf actually doing a lot this game, because it prevented Latios from being able to sweep. Iron Hands probably could have stopped the Latios as well, but Iron Hands being healthy enough to stop the Roaring Moon is definitely a lot more helpful. So, yeah, well played by Z's. Nothing too remarkable about the team besides the Choice Scarf mixed Iron Valiant, or Valiant, as I've learned. That's the proper pronunciation of it. But yeah, well played, and let's move on to the next match, which is Azick versus Xiri. Xiri opting for a Fairy team, and Azick opting for a Poison team. Now, Poison should have a pretty good matchup into Fairy, but Fairy does have Hatterin, and it does have Klefki, who can make Poison's job a lot harder. But with that being said, Azick is opting for a relatively different Poison team, as he is using Clemora. which isn't super common on Poison, or at least the poisons that have been brought in the tournament so far. Glamora is typically a pretty good mon on Poison, but the popular Poison builds typically don't use it, so it is very unusual that he does have this here. And we also have the Galarian Slowking, which isn't shocking. We also have the Galarian Weezing. Very possible. No, okay, so unlike on Fairy, I believe the Galarian Weezing on this team is definitely going to be Levitate, because Levitate is way too good to give up, even for potentially dealing with Gliscor. But there is a chance he could do it. Instead, have something like a Balloon Pekka-Runt, but yeah. Yeah, pretty standard Poison team, but I know those of you who have been watching this entire tournament through me, you probably aren't used to what standard Poison teams look like, but this is relatively standard with the exception of Glamora. So, and on Xiri's side we have the double waters with Fluttermane and Valiant. So I think Azick should have the advantage here, but let's see, because we have seen Hatterene pull some miracles this game, or this tournament, so let's see how this goes. Alright, Azick leading with Muck immediately, looking to instantly knock off the Klefki, get rid of those get like Clay, but we do get the Reflect Up immediately. Here comes Weezing. Weezing is Levitate, as he would have announced the other abilities, and Instant Defog gets rid of the dangerous not was, but screens, but the Sparkling Aria immediately OHKOs the Weezing, as we see Slowking get the Chilly Reception off after the T-Wave. Sparkling Aria KOing Glamora, and because it's a special move, it does not leave a Toxic Debris. Pekka-Runt now coming out, the Malignant Chain getting perfectly blocked by Klefki, as we see a nasty block come through, but the spikes do come up, as Klefki gets a Thunder Wave off, getting a perfect paralysis. Light Screen comes up, as we see more nasty plots come through. The perfect Hex prediction, but unfortunately Fluttermane is just too tanky with the Light Screen. Shadow Ball does come out, but Muck will be able to easily take that. As Klefki comes out again, and Pekka-Runt comes in again. Fluttermane coming out again, as the Malignant Chain goes through, the Toxic and Poison Puppeteer combo triggering, as Xiri is looking a bit worse for wear. The Moonblast does take a lot of Muck's health away, but Xiri is going to only have one more use of his Fluttermane unless he has Healing Wish secretly stored on one of these Pokemon. As the spikes do come out again, and the nasty plot comes through. Pekka-Runt is just incredibly bulky, by the way, so it's going to be hard for Xiri to break through this T, unless he has something like Choice Specs Iron Valiant with Psychic or something, but very unlikely that that'll happen. He gets the Paralysis, as we see the Psychic Noise, and the Heal block will prevent any sort of healing on the side of Pekka-Runt. The crit Malignant Chain, probably maybe not mattering, but there's a chance it could have mattered. But regardless, the Paralysis did seal Pekka-Runt's fate, as Iron Valiant will finish it off with the knockoff. Slowking, Galarian Slowking coming out, but we do see Sword Stance used. Shadow Sneak used by the Iron Valiant. He's not going to risk potentially not outspeeding it with Adamant. As we see Azumarill come in, and Aqua Jet, and if it is not, yeah, it isn't Choice Band, so it will just sweep the rest of the team. And once again, Fairy, even in a... I would say Fairy still has a rougher time with Poison, but it definitely... This was definitely operated really well by Xiri, and Azick's team was not able to deal with Fluttermane's overall power, even with the Muck. And Primarina actually is the MVP of this match, because Primarina just OHKO'd a lot of stuff with the Specs Sparkling Arias, which did a lot of damage. Cleanly OHKOing the Galarian Weezing and also OHKOing Glamora, and putting a lot of pressure on Muck as well, because Muck could not come into that very safely, especially with the spikes that Klefki was constantly putting up. So yeah, Primarina putting in a lot of work in this matchup. And once again, it was just solidly played. Xiri made sure to not let Sneasler get any opportunities to do anything crazy by keeping his Klefki alive and also just pivoting around his Pokemon properly. So yeah, well played to Xiri in this match. Unfortunate this is Poison's first loss, but hey, that's just the power of Fairy, isn't it? Alright, next we have Clean versus Fusien. Clean is opting for triple Cantonian Bird Flying, as Fusien opts for a Dark Team with Bisharp, interestingly enough, which we haven't seen a ton in this tournament. I wonder what the Bisharp is looking to do this game, because usually Bisharp is brought for defog, or anti-defog measures, and, well, Flying definitely is one of the few uses of defog, but I don't think this Flying team is one of those teams that will have defog on it, as typically Moltres doesn't use it, and I think Articuno also doesn't use it as well. Moltres would be the only person that would potentially use it on this team, but I don't feel like this team is going to use it. I could be wrong though, and maybe Moltres does have it, but even if it does have it, I really don't think Fusien wants to put Bisharp into Moltres because of Will-O-Wisp and Flamethrower. But yeah, regardless, Fusien is still in the driver's seat this match, even with Bisharp potentially not having a ton of use. It could still get its Defiant Boost off of Landorus Therian, but again, it's going to be very risky making it work. Even with the Eviolite bulk, I think it would be very risky. But enough pre-game predictions, let's just see how this match goes. So, Landorus is immediately led, with Greninja responding. Articuno is immediately switched in as Fusien opts for the U-turn, maybe confirming that it's Scarf. As Meowscarada comes out, forcing out the Articuno and letting Skarmory come in. Meowscarada looking like it may be... it might be... actually, no, I think it might be Scarf still. I actually don't know the damage numbers that well. But we do see Darkrai get a Nasty Plot off and threaten to 2 KO Articuno with a flinch, but fortunately Articuno is able to get the Haze off, as Darkrai goes for the Nasty Plot again. Landorus using U-turn to do quite a bit of damage to Darkrai, as Darkrai does a hefty amount to Gliscor. Gliscor is going to be KO'd, not having doing much this game, but Landorus will be able to get the Revenge KO on Darkrai, but Fusien will not let that happen as he swaps into Mandibuzz. Skarmory coming out from Clean's U-turn as the Roost is used, and Mandibuzz U-turns into the Greninja, who is looking to be very threatening in this position. The Surf does do 55%, but it does not do enough to KO Skarmory. Skarmory responding with a Body Press that does quite a bit of chip damage to Greninja, as Greninja gets another Surf onto Zapdos that does 42. Zapdos opting to Roost as the Tinglu is sent out by Fusien. Skarmory coming back out as Tinglu puts up the Stealth Rock, putting in as much pressure against the flying team as he can, as Skarmory does recover most of its HP back with Roost. Dark Pulse used again by Darkrai, but will unfortunately get KO'd by the Skarmory's Body Press. Here comes Greninja. Ice Beam gets used, and Skarmory will get KO'd. But now Articuno comes in, and should be able to take the Ice Beam easily, so there's probably a free Roost happening here. As Bisharp does come out, Bisharp still looking semi-scary here, but he does not opt to Swords Dance, he instead opts to switch to Meowscarada, as Moltres is forced out by the Meowscarada. Zapdos losing its heavy-duty boots. And we see Zapdos get KO'd. Intimidate does come through on the side of Landorus, but Fusion easily switches into Tinglu, who's able to take the Earthquake. Mandibuzz comes in, knowing that, or assuming that the Landorus is Choice Scarf, as the Toxic comes through onto the Moltres, heavily limiting its ability to wall things, as Mandibuzz does Roost off the Will-O-Wisp chip. Moltres roosts itself as the U-turn is used by Mandibuzz into Meowscarada. I think the Meowscarada might be Choice Band. but I feel like Choice Band maybe should have killed there, but I'm not 100%. But we do see these Flame Body Burn get Masquerada, so Masquerada will not be useful for this match, as it does get Revenge KO'd from Landorus. Landorus is going to opt to keep Earthquaking, but Clean may know very well that it might be screwed here, due to Mandibush just being immune to Earthquake. So, yeah, Clean is going to keep using Earthquake. I'm not sure if he's trying to bluff something, but yeah. I think Clean is only doing this just so Articuno can potentially have a chance to come in and get rid of the Mandibuzz, and also potentially get rid of the Bisharp without getting Toxic itself. Do see the substitute come up, as the Freeze Dry does come through. U-turn is used by Mandibuzz, swapping into Greninja. Greninja should be able to break the substitute, and it does with Sludge Wave. Roost is used by Clean, as we see the Sludge Wave come out again. Substitute is used. It looks like Clean is opting to stall out the Greninja Sludge Wave, which it can reasonably do, as Sludge Wave does have 60 PP. But he has to be careful with the poison chance, because it is 10%, but 10% could potentially happen at any time. Alright, looks like Clean is still looking to stall it out, but the poison does come through, and that should seal Clean's fate. As Articuno will slowly die to the poison chip damage. Greninja will run out of Sludge Wave PP, but Articuno should not be able to survive against the Bisharp, who will likely Iron Head and KO it. Yeah, the Bisharp will finish the job. Double attempt to try and get a freeze on the Bisharp. If he got the freeze, there is a chance that Clean could have actually won this game. And it is definitely correct to try and go for the freeze. So, admirable attempt by Clean to try and salvage this match any way he could. But sadly, Fusien was in the far advantageous spot, so yeah. Well played to both sides, though. But let's move on to the next match, which is Star Fox versus RindaOkami. We have Star Fox with the semi-rare Dark Team with Hisui and Samura, and Hydreigon, which I think this might be Hydreigon's debut in this tournament. And we have Ghost by RindaOkami. This is not a very good matchup for Ghost to deal with, but Fluttermane is a powerful mon, so Dark still has to be incredibly careful. He does have one of Ghost's more annoying mons, or annoying matchups with Alolan Muck. Alolan Muck is very good into Ghost due to its general special bulkiness and ability to knock off all of its items quite effortlessly. So, very good chance that RindaOkami will have a hard time winning this match, especially since Muck can get rid of Fluttermane's choice specs. So, we'll see how this goes. Greninja is led in front of the Spectrier. Greninja instantly using the switcheroo, as now Spectrier has a Choice Scarf instead of its Colbur Berry. I believe Colbur Berry is the anti-dark one? Yeah, I think Colbur is the anti-dark one. So, we do see the crit knockoff, the crit possibly mattering. I think the crit did matter, as it fully outgoes Dragapult. Dragapult is no longer going to be in this match, as Greninja goes for the Ice Beam against the Spectrier. Greninja will be outsped by the Spectrier, but Spectrier is stuck into Draining Kiss. The Grimday going off, but oh, Darkrai coming out instead. But the Sucker Punch. The Darkrai Sucker Punch is very surprising to see, as Hydreigon will be brought down to its sash by Fluttermane. Darkrai, not Darkrai, but Hydreigon might have been the Stealth Rock lead set, as we do see Muck take quite a bit of damage from the Fluttermane, but will remove Fluttermane's Choice Scarf, not choice specs. Here comes Fusien Samurai. The Aqua Jet coming through, but not getting the KO, as Meowscarada will come out. Power Whip doing a decent amount of chip to Meowscarada, as Pekkaron comes out on RindaOkami's side. Knockoff getting rid of the Black Sludge, but not going to be getting that 2-hit KO that Star Fox wants, as RindaOkami will swap out with Fluttermane, who still naturally outspeeds Meowscarada. Darkrai coming out. RindaOkami fears the Sucker Punch and goes straight into Pekkaron. Darkrai getting the knockoff on to the Pekkaron, as we do see Brambleghast use Strength Sap and fully recover its HP. Brambleghast clicking Power Whip, likely going to... Nope, doesn't click doesn't click a Shadow Sneak, but it didn't need to, as the Power Whip will claim the KO, and RindaOkami is able to take that relatively rough matchup and turn it on its head with the power of Fluttermane and some very solid play by themselves. This was a very non-standard Dark team, because physical Sword Stance Darkrai is actually not very common. It's usually a special attacker. But on this team, it did seem to do pretty good work, as the Sucker Punch did catch RindaOkami off guard. Because it does typically use Knockoff even on special sets, but using Knockoff and Sucker Punch along with Sword Stance is definitely non-standard. So this would have been very scary for RindaOkami to deal with had they not had Fluttermane, and had the trick gone on any of their walls, but fortunately for RindaOkami that did not happen, so yeah. Well played by RindaOkami, and let's move on to the next match, which will be LBN versus Twinkay. LBN opting for a Dragon team with Latios instead of Latios, as well as Roaring Moon. And we have Twinkay opting for a Dragon team as well, but with Hydreigon. And Roaring Moon. Interesting that we've seen Roaring Moon quite a bit in this tournament, or quite a bit in the semifinals. Wonder if there's a metagame trend going on with that, but let's see how this match goes. Alright. Raging Bolt lead into the Archaludon, as Raging Bolt will click the Draco Meteor. That looks like choice specs damage on the Xiri and Goodra there, as the Dragon Tail does come out and force out Archaludon and puts in Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon is confirmed to be is definitely confirmed to be a choice item, so we see the U-turn come out, as Archaludon is put back in. Knockoff coming through on the side of Twinkay, getting rid of Archaludon's leftovers on LBN's side. Latios will be put in, as Stealth Rock is put down by the Archaludon. Trick coming through on the side of Latios, as it does force Xiri and Goodra to no longer have leftovers. Here comes the Hydreigon, clicking Earthquake, as the Dragon Tail is going to do a lot of damage to it and force it out. Now Twinkay has their Archaludon on, as the Draco Meteor comes through and knocks out the LBN's Dragapult. Raging Bolt getting a free Draco Meteor off and KOing Twinkay's Hydreigon, as we do see Twinkay put in their own Dragapult, which uses Draco Meteor and KOs LBN's Goodra. Roaring Moon coming out, as it uses U-turn on the Archaludon predictably, as Raging Bolt does come out and threaten the Archaludon. Raging Bolt likely going to 2-hit KO. Ooh, actually it may not. It will not 2-hit KO the Xiri and Goodra, as you do see the Dragon Tail from the Xiri and Goodra come out and force out LBN's Archaludon into the Latios. LBN has Earthquake on his Latios, possibly to try and counter the Xiri and Goodra. Unfortunately, it is called out. Ice Beam coming out from Twinkay's side, but unfortunately will not be enough to KO the Latios. As we do see Twinkay put in their own Roaring Moon. Fusien Gudra coming out again, getting some leftovers chip healing as our Caledon on LBN's side comes out. The Substitute coming in, protecting the Protect. Flash Cannon getting a crit on the Dragapult, but fortunately Dragapult does have Infiltrator, so it does get through the Substitute, and Roaring Boot will revenge KO the Dragapult. But now LBN is down to just Raging Bolt and Roaring Boon against Twinkay's team. Twinkay getting the Roaring Boon to instantly KO the Roaring Boon, and now also wins the speed tie against LBN's Roaring Boon, and thus ends this match in Twinkay's favor. Yeah, as Dragon Beards go, it's a very sack-heavy game. But fortunately, Twinkay was able to get the position they wanted thanks to the usage of Trick on their Latios, crippling the Fusien Gudra on LBN's team and allowing him to get the victory and wear it down a lot easier as well. So yeah, well done to Twinkay. Let's move on to the next match, which will be Tare versus Scarfire. Scarfire opting for another Latios team. Latios Roaring Boon making a lot of appearances instead of well, not even instead of Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt was still used quite a bit, but Latios and Roaring Moon are making a lot more appearances than I'm used to, especially since this is the semifinals. So the people are pulling out all the secret techs, I assume. But yeah, I'm sure the theory is that Latios is a very, very strong special attacker, very good against flying as well. And Roaring Moon is a decent choice scarfer. But I'm curious to see how it does. Oh, it's also against Fairy, which may not be ideal for Fairy. Or not. Sorry, I'm in that other way around. It's not ideal for a Dragon team to be dealing with Fairy, but our Caledon and Gudra are very solid steel mods, so Fairy's not going to have a very easy time breaking through that. With that being said, though, Scarfire is probably in the driver's seat for this matchup, as Garchomp is going to be a problem depending on the set. If it's a Sword Stance set, it's probably going to be a massive issue, but if it's a Hazard Lead set, it's probably going to not do too much this game, because Hatterene it'll just be set up big for Hatterene, I believe. So, enough of me yapping, let's see how this match goes. The Iron Valiant leading into our Caledon, as we see the close combat instantly. Brings it to 2%, not quite the KO that Tare was maybe looking for, as the Flash Cannon will KO Iron Valiant. That's not good for Tare at all, because he needed that Iron Valiant for Fusien Gudra and a couple of the other ones on this team as well. But we do see the Fluttermane get the KO, as Psyshock is used by Scarfire's Latios, but it does get KO'd by Primarina. Iron Head is used by Scarfire, as the Klefki will come out and start setting up screens, but the instant Fluttermane double does put Scarfire on the back foot, as Moonblast does take a good chunk of health out of his Fusien Gudra. Fusien Gudra opting for a heavy slab. As we see the Reflect come through, ooh, the Life Dew, bringing it Fusien Gudra back to full HP. As we do see the knockoff remove the Light Clay from Tare's Klefki. Heavy Slam still being repeatedly used, as the Thunder Wave does come through. Will Tare swap out his Klefki? No, they will not. They will stay in. Tare opting to sack the Klefki, as he will run out of Reflect turns. Fluttermane coming out, but gets KO'd by Heavy Slam. So we do see the Mimikyu. Mimikyu gets the KO on Garchomp. Here comes Roaring Moon. The Ironhead, will they get the flinch that they need here? They will not, sadly. As we will see, Dragapult, will Dragapult have Sucker Punch though? Well, it doesn't use Sucker Punch, but it does still survive the Shadow Sneak. And it looks like Hatterene might not be able to survive that. Yeah, Hatterene does fall. And Fairy, a rare loss. But as I said before, Tare not getting that KO on Archelodon was very bad for him. Because had he gotten that KO, Iron Valiant would have been a far more useful asset to the team, as it could naturally outspeed Latios. It could also KO Hisui and Gudra with its close combat, as well as just click Fairy attacks on anything else that could have came in, but sadly it did get KO'd, which put him in a really bad position. So, yeah, very unfortunate, but Scarfire will win this matchup. As I said before, Archelodon and Hisui and Gudra are very tough to break. Iron Valiant, crucially not being able to break through Archelodon is the reason why this game went the way it did. So, very well done by Scarfire, and let's move on to the next match. Chaitanya versus Axzel is this matchup, as Chaitanya is opting for a Steel team, first one of the semifinals, into Axzel's Ghost team, potentially with Screen's Sableye. Now, me and Boop did talk about Screen's Sableye in the metagame review video that I did 2 weeks ago, but the reason he said it wouldn't be brought was because it was a bit too risky. Now, it seems that in this semifinal matchup, we are seeing the Screen Sableye come out. So, have they managed to make a team that minimizes the risks that Sableye offers that Sableye presents to the team? We shall see. And notes on Chaitanya's team, Chaitanya is just using a pretty standard Steel with Caesar as a Sword Stancer. No Hisui and Gudra in sight, so let's see how this goes. Dragapult comes out, and the Dragon Dance immediately in front of the Heatran. As Skarmory will come out, but the substitute will go through. Will Chaitanya have Whirlwind? Most likely. Note he instead uses Spikes, as Phantom Force is used by Axzel. Phantom Force doing a whopping 35 to Skarmory. Skarmory not really too affected by the move, but the Spikes will keep going down on the side of Chaitanya, as Dragon Darts will come out from Axzel's Dragapults, but to very little avail. Skarmory is still clicking Roost, and perfectly walling the Dragapult. Axzel looking like they are trying to predict Chaitanya's Whirlwind, as we do see another pair of Dragon Darts come out. Chaitanya burning through their Roost uses very quickly, only has 3 left. As the Whirlwind does finally come through, and Sableye takes a hefty chunk of damage from the hazards. As we do see the Will-O-Wisp come out, Whirlwind being used again and doing a chunk of damage to Spectrier. Here comes Heatran to try and take the Shadow Ball, and it takes it very well. Meaning that this may likely be a Nasty Plot Spectrier with a Colbur Berry. Yep, it is Nasty Plot, but the Power Gem will finish off the Spectrier, as we see Cerulege come out now. If Cerulege has close combat, this will be very scary for Chaitanya. But we do see instead of the Poltergeist come out, and Poltergeist is able to catch Skarmory on the swap. Now we see Dragapult come in as a response to Archelodon, as the foul play will get the KO. Sableye now finally coming in, will we see the screens? Yes, we do. Here come the screens, and Goldingo will get the KO on Sableye. Ceruledge is going to come in now, but I don't think Ceruledge will be able to take that Shadow Ball. Bitterblade coming out, but giving Heatran a free Flash Fire proc. At the Poltergeist unfortunately misses, and Ceruledge will be taking a Power Gem to the face as a result. Poltergeist probably not going to KO Heatran from this range now, yep, as Ceruledge will fall. Goldingo now coming in. We'll get the Shadow Ball onto the Heatran. As we see the knockoff come through, Casside Berry being the item of choice for Goldingo, as we see Goldingo now fall. And now this matchup should be over, because Scizor can just check Flutter Mane. Archaudon will be the one to... Actually, no, it does not opt for a Steel move, so... going to take a little bit longer. But here comes Scizor, and the Bullet Punch will KO. Very unfortunate debut for Scream's Ghost, but Chaitanya just played very solidly, making sure to get their hazards up and start spike shuffling very quickly. Making Axzel very little options, as Ceruledge just got worn down too quickly in order to really make usage of the screens that Sableye put down. The screens were still semi-scary, but again, the issues with Ghost's team composition just makes it very hard for a screens team of this nature to work very well. So, yeah. Well played to Chaitanya though, and let's move on to the final match, which will be DCA versus Vodoom. Vodoom opting for a standard fighting team, with DCA opting for a standard fairy team with double waters. So this matchup should definitely be fairy favored, but fighting can still be a threat with the Iron Hands and Sneasler being big threats. Also, Gallade can also just collect the KO against this team as well. But with proper usage of screens, Fairy still has a very good chance of making fighting completely useless. So let's take a look and see what happens. As the Klefki is the first thing that comes out this game, Gallade being Vodoom's lead, but the Reflect instantly comes down. Spikes being used, and Iron Hands opts for the Sword Stance. As we see the Thunder Punch come through, Vodoom, scared of the Iron Valiant, does swap out, as we do see the close combat come through. Sneasler now has its Unburden activated, but DCA will go straight into Klefki, who perfectly walls Sneasler. As we see Great Tusk come out. Foul Play from the Klefki comes through, now confirming the Rocky Helmet, as Flutter Mane looks to block the Rapid Spin, but instead it loses its Choice Specs. But Flutter Mane most likely won't need those Choice Specs, as the Moonblast does get the KO on Sneasler. Gallade comes in, as it does collect the KO against the Iron Valiant on DCA's side. Klefki comes in again, opting to click Reflect. As we may see a Spike, yep, there comes the Spikes. As Flutter Mane does come out again, Headlong Rush being used by Great Tusk. As Gallade does take chip damage from the Spikes. Gallade most likely having Shadow Sneak, so DCA is going to swap. As Azumarill will be taking the hit very well, and KO the Gallade, no longer putting Flutter Mane in danger of that Shadow Sneak. As we do see DCA tried to read the Rapid Spin again, but unfortunately they would get Flutter Mane KO'd. Trick Room will be coming through on the side of Hatteran though, as we do see the Draining Kiss. It will take damage from Rocky Helmet due to being contact move. Urshifu coming in, but being KO'd easily by the Psychic, as Iron Valiant will also be KO'd by the Psychic. And now it is down to Iron Hands. Will Iron Hands be able to get the KO? Iron Hands opts for a Sword Stance, as the Thunder Punch does do a ton of damage to the Hatteran, but unfortunately, the Thunder Punch is not enough damage. If it had Supercell Slam, it would have killed, but we all know what happens, or what can happen, with Supercell Slam. So, Very unfortunate, but it is what it is. A Fairy takes another game as Vodoom falls to DCA. And with that, that is all the matches for this week. So comparatively, this is a relatively short video. Still pretty long, but yeah, these semifinals have been some pretty good matches. We've been seeing a lot of Roaring Moon, Latios, Dragon, which is very interesting. I might have to, once the tournament ends, I'll maybe ask one of the team managers of the semifinals what that entire thought process was about, as I don't fully know what could be the reasoning behind it. Maybe it's just a new flavor of the month thing, or maybe it's actually like genuinely really good. I do think Latios is a mod on Dragon that is very good at just blanket checking a lot of stuff, but giving up, well, using Latios means you have to give up using Latios, because using both of them on the same team is like kinda not great for Dragon's team comp. So it's kind of awkward to use both of them at the same time, so it's usually one or the other. And if you're using Latios, then you're going to be using a very good offensive Pokemon. But if you use Latios, you're going to probably pick something a little bit more supportive to help it do as much damage as it can, like Garchomp, for example, as we saw in the one game. But yeah, we also saw Hydreigon a lot, or a lot more than I feel like we probably should have, considering it's the semifinals. But Boop did say this is when we'd start seeing the crazy stuff, so I guess this is an example of that. But yeah, tournament is shaping up to be really good. I will cover the finals. I will unfortunately not have a guest, because the only way to really make a guest appearance work for a live commentary, or not really live commentary, but for a commentary video like this, is to have it happen live, as will just be most of the people who watch, or who are a part of the Monotype community, watch what happens in WWP live. So it would be like kind of a non-genuine reaction, because I don't see most of these matches live, purposefully, so I could be shocked at what happens as a final result. With very few exceptions, obviously, because the 500 turn game was definitely one of those exceptions. I had to be aware of that beforehand, but yeah. That will be it for this video, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.